to the Clock and Talk and Arsenal podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. You can find us at YouTube, iTunes, and follow us on Twitter at @clockand_talk. Each and every week, I'm joined by a couple of good blokes. Tony, how are you, mate?
You've got a couple of good blokes, and me and Schwinn is probably what you meant to say. I'm all good, thanks. Good week watching the World Cup. It's horrible. This is the first day in 15 days where there's been no football on, so I'm kind of a bit lost. But I've always got replays of the Germany game to watch if I ever need a bit of fun in my life. So,
I actually thought you'd be replaying the England-Panama game.
It's coming home, lads.
I knew it.
Now's the time you get to catch up on Love Island. I know Schwinn's fully involved now, seeing as the World Cup's over for his Germans.
Yeah, he's Germans. Talking about Schwinn, we better welcome him. How are you, Schwinn?
That was a cold welcome, wasn't it? I don't think I've ever been ushered in with so much love and poise. I'm doing well. A very, very belated happy birthday to you, Tez. I've heard that you had a good time. I'm glad you have. And now that you're edging closer to your 60s, I'm glad that you're able to use technology and join in with us every now and then.
Yeah, thanks, mate. No, thanks for that. And I'd also thank the listeners for jumping in and saying happy birthday, because I was shocked, actually. So it was good to a couple of followers come out. And 58, did you say, Tony?
57. He's so old, he's forgot his own age.
All I wanted, boys, the only thing I needed was a pronunciation technology thing. So I haven't got one of them. So you're stuck with the pronunciation of names. I can't even fucking say it. But I am highly hungover as well too. So I'm here and we're ready to get into it. Tony, do you remember our last recording? I think it might have been Germany-Sweden game, was it?
Yeah, I think no. Schwinn. Any idea?
I think it might have been Serbia-Switzerland, because that was the last game on Friday.
Yeah, it was. So we recorded during the Iceland game when Sigurdsson put the penalty in the upper tier, and then after was Serbia-Switzerland, which was a very good game. That
was a good game. Okay, so then we got into that. Yeah, it was okay. Around 23rd of June when Belgium smashed. Somebody.
Tunisia,
yeah, 5-2, that's right. Anyway, each and every week when we've been doing the World Cup edition, we've been running with the good, the bad and the ugly theme. So, Tony, what's your good out of the games that you've seen since that night?
Germany going home.
Wow, no remorse.
No, I think in a way, I'm only saying this because I don't think they'll win it, but Messi staying in the tournament probably has to be seen as a good. If I thought they had a genuine chance of winning it, I would say, I wish they went out. But you kind of do want to see the big players going as deep in the tournament as possible. So them going through, and that goal will never be as highly rated as it should. It was an absolute joke. The two touches to get the ball down without breaking stride are just ridiculous on all levels. Also, Rojo's goal in that game was a joke as well. But yeah, Messi's goal was a joke, and it's good to see him continuing on in the tournament, and it gives us a very juicy last 16 tie tomorrow.
Schwinn, what's your good, mate?
Just going off of that, the World Cup in general, I think it's been one that's been very difficult to call. I think if you look back at our predictions, at least, we'll know that there's been a lot of upsets. And I think what was very interesting about this past week in particular was how the games were being played simultaneously, and with every goal going in, and even in some instances, bookings being made, it was as if the scales were being rebalanced. So I think as a neutral spectator, which I have been ever since my team went out, it's been very, very interesting to watch some of these teams. And I've usually been at the pub where, you have a group of people who are supporting different teams and the emotions run high at different points. So I think as a spectator, it's just been an amazing World Cup. I think the VAR has added to the drama. And just in general, it's been difficult to call games going into any game. No one's necessarily an underdog, and teams know exactly what they need to do. and most of them have been able to stick to their game plan. So it's been very, very interesting. And I thought I'll just give a shout out to the World Cup in general as opposed to a particular team.
Okay. Yeah, look, I agree. It's almost like the smaller nations, it's not really park the bus, but they seem to be defending really well. Stacking the back, obviously, but not parking the bus like a Manchester United. But and that's the results are type of, well, as you say, like they're just, you can't pick it. It's just bloody hard to pick. But I'm going to give a shout out to my dark horse. I'm pretty sure it was Uruguay. I think they've won the 3 games, and they've also kept a clean sheet. And I'm pretty sure they have, yes. So I'm going to give a shout out to them because I think they probably deserve it. And they've won the group. Now I've got to looking through as I'm talking at who they play next.
Portugal.
Portugal. So that'll be a tough game for them. But I think Uruguay will probably get that one up. But anyway, we'll go on to that now because I want to touch on the next stage. Tony, and I'll go to you because England obviously finished second in your group, and it was going to be a big thing of, will they finish top and go to, some say, the harder side, or finish second and go to the easier side. However, a lot of English fans are worried that coming over Colombia.
I think basically the morning of yesterday's games, everyone wanted us to come second because it looked like it'd be probably Japan that we would play, and then Switzerland or Sweden if we beat Japan. And it looked like much easier because of the way the results went in that group. It changed things massively. And I was just talking to Schwinn earlier, and I said I don't think that if you look at the draw, the draw for the team that's come second, which is what we did, is probably slightly better, but it's very marginal. It's quite 50-50. Whereas in the morning, if it looked like Japan were going to win that group, it would have been an absolute no-brainer to finish second. So I do think it's a bit better, but not as big a difference as we thought it might be. Colombia are no pushovers. They're a good. Saying that, they look very good against Poland, who have looked bad in both games, to be honest. But they were. They lost to Japan. They were good with 10 men, but they wasn't sensational. But then they did have 10 men, and I know they beat Senegal yesterday, but I thought they were terrible. I didn't think both teams would play particularly well. So the odds are completely wrong. Bookies' odds have got England as huge favourites, which I wouldn't go that far, but it's a 50-50. I'd probably slightly favour England, but that may be biasness coming in. I think just because of how Colombia played. If Colombia played how they did in the 2014 World Cup and we had to play them, then it would be a different story. But as I said, they haven't been particularly good, and it's not. They've played better nations than us, but they've not played world beaters. They played a very poor Poland, and they lost to a Japan team where you kind of know what you're going to get. They work hard, and that's about it. And then they scrape past Senegal. Interestingly, they've been very good from set pieces. We've been very good from set pieces. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It should be a good time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just got off track a little bit there, boys. So Tony, while you're talking, you've got to give me a bad, mate.
I'm really torn between putting this in the bad and the ugly, but the last 10 minutes of the Japan game yesterday, I don't know if you've seen it, but they basically were through it with a 1-0 loss at that stage, and Poland were obviously winning, so they didn't need to press the game. So Japan just literally passed the ball around the back, stood still with the ball for like 10 seconds at a time. Poland didn't press them because they're winning. They don't need to get the ball back. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It really made me want Senegal to score because that would have knocked Japan out and served them right. But honestly, if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't even say go and watch it because it's the least entertaining thing that you'll ever see. But it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen on a football pitch.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have a little squizzy at that. I didn't see the game at all, so at that stage I was highly intoxicated. Schwinn, you got a bad, mate?
Oh, I guess this is a time as any to speak about Germany, and what we saw this past weekend was ecstasy at the very end. But I think that made people forget how bad the performance was against Sweden. Of course, we rescued the points with a late Tony Kroos free kick, but I think most of us knew that was not a Germany level performance, just overshadowed by that late goal, and that was made even clearer when we played South Korea. I don't know what happened there. Is it stale tactics? Is it do you want to question the depth? Do you want to question why Leroy Sané was left at home? Of course, Sané himself couldn't have done a whole lot, but at this point you have to question where all the team and the staff went wrong. And I think there's a whole host of things that we can discuss there. But it's just bad. It's just bad football. There was a weak plan A. There was no plan B. Mario Gomez is not plan B. So don't come at me saying that we had a tall striker on the bench who could have done something like what Giroud does for Arsenal. And the likes of Timo Werner were ineffective. Julian Draxler was nowhere to be seen. Marco Reus didn't do a whole lot. Mesut Ozil was okay. Sami Khedira, I don't know what he does for the team. And you can look around the team, starters and non-starters, and you can go over them and understand that there's not a whole lot of dynamism in the team. And I think we fell victim to that. No one, at least us on the pod or people we interact with, said that Germany were going to bow out after the group stages. And I think that's very emblematic of what we expect from an outfit like Germany and the values that they usually tend to cherish. This was very uncharacteristic. It was very disappointing. And at the end of the day, it's not something you would expect from Germany. So I think in a nutshell, that would be my bad.
It was a shock. And since we're on the subject of Germany, I just want to bring up, because Ozil has copped a fair bit of slack. And look, as he's going to get, and I hope Arsenal fans get behind him. Now, I know we often don't talk about stats, and Tony says, watch football with your eyes. But I had a look at the key. Now, he's leading, boys, the key passes so far in the World Cup. Obviously, he's out now. 5.5 total, 11 key passes for that Germany team. Now, they won one game, did they?
He didn't play in the game they won.
Yeah.
They didn't score a goal with him on the pitch.
Really? Okay. So what is your take on it, Tone?
I'm a bit 50-50. Look, the criticism's been a joke because of the 11 players they had on the pitch, he was in the top 3. I'm not saying he was good, but when you're criticising, you surely go from you criticise the worst first, the second worst, blah, blah, blah. So he should be so far down the line of criticism, but he's the one that's got the most criticism. I've seen people put up his numbers and say, look, he played well, he done his job. In one sense, he did create chances. I was very disappointed, and I think you can label the blame at him and Tony Kroos with the tempo of Germany's play. I thought they moved the ball too slow and just done everything too slow. And with the amount of passes that Ozil and Kroos make and the areas that they find themselves in, it's their job, in my opinion, to control the tempo. And if they notice it was a bit flat, move the ball quicker, get everything going quicker. So although he did create chances, and you can't really hammer him for that because that's what he's there for, I think his contribution to the overall game could have been better. But as I said, he was definitely in their top 3 players in the South Korea game. So for him to be getting the most criticism, which he is, for me is ridiculous. As I said, you can literally run through every player and label either clear mistakes or just stuff they didn't do well. And with him, you kind of... I've not actually heard a direct criticism of him. Like, people go, oh, he was shit, and you go, what did he do wrong? And they go, I have not heard an answer to that.
Mm-hmm. They don't.
Whereas if you go... if you say, like, Hummels, you can say, oh, the 2 chances he missed, the number of back passes. Even if you go Neuer, I know it's not his job, but getting tackled in centre midfield. Do you know what I mean? Every player you can label an actual mistake, whereas Ozil's the one that people say, oh, he played shit, but they can't tell you what he done. As I said, I'm not saying he was good, but he just wasn't anywhere near the worst.
Yeah. No, I agree. Look, and I looked at his stats, and I thought, he wasn't overly as bad as what people say. I only take the piss with Schwinn that he goes missing in games. I can't really say I did see him, though. But then when you look at his stats, I think, oh, shit, okay. So I get what you're saying, Tony. The little bit of the blame has to come to him because he's your creative player. But
yeah, but I don't think in that sense you can blame him because he'd done his job in that sense. In terms of creating, he'd done that. It's not his fault that other people couldn't kick it in the goal or head it in the goal or put their knob on it and get it in the goal.
Yep.
For me, it's just the overall tempo of the game. And it's probably more a thing to blame Cruz for than him, but he also plays a part in that. It's one of the things I always said that the best thing for me about Fabregas when he was at Arsenal and even now is he could walk on a football pitch, whether he came on as a sub or started the game, and he decided the tempo. I've seen him come on in games before and pick the pace up 10, 20% just by passing the ball quicker, making everyone move quicker. And Ozil and Cruz no doubt have the ability to do that and do that regularly for Real Madrid and Arsenal. They didn't do that for Germany. So that's where I'd lay the blame on them. I wouldn't say, oh, he's there to create and he didn't create, because he clearly did.
He did create, yeah. I thought Timo Werner, he was probably, I think it was a shocking World Cup from him. But did he even score one goal?
No, don't get me started on him.
I do not. Okay, that's a sore point. But I just thought he was probably one of the worst players of the World Cup. So now, just quickly, there was a Schwinn said I can't exactly put my finger on it. I did see a meme going around. Germany won the World Cup last time. They went out. You boys are probably seeing it. Italy won it, and they went out.
4 of the last 5 have gone out in the groups.
Is it the World Cup curse?
Oh, Brazil are the only ones that haven't. Look, you shouldn't be going out in the group, but you do become a bigger scalp. You're the world champions. And we forget, I mean, obviously I know you two aren't in Europe, but we forget in Europe because we're playing these countries all the time. It doesn't become a big... since Germany won the World Cup, I think we played them 3 times in friendlies. So it doesn't become a big thing to play the world champions because we do it all the time. But these South American sides, they only ever get to play Germany once every 4 years pretty much, if they draw them in the group. So it becomes a major scout to get the opportunity to play a world champion or to beat a world champion. So I think not that there should be any motivation at a World Cup, but there maybe is that extra 1%.
That'd be the biggest achievement of South Korea since 2002 World Cup, was it?
Yep.
So I don't know if they've done. I got them in the sweep actually. In one of the sweeps I was in. So South Korea beat the world champions. So does that mean they're favourites now?
They're out.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I got a bad. What's my bad? Oh, now I've got to be very careful here. Denmark and France. It was a 0-0 draw. Now Australia obviously had to beat Peru to get through their group, which didn't happen. Peru just smashed us, and now bad. The bad is probably the way Australia played that game. But in saying that, I have to say, I'm not going to say corruption. I'm not going to say cheats or whatnot, what I have, but it's a sus of shit when you see Denmark and France draw and they know that all they do is need a draw. Like, I bet on my main thing's horse racing, and we tend to know a bit of an idea about horses and horse racing where the trainer will go, look, he's a good horse, you know, we're going to throw him in a not so good a race and he should win it. But then when and you think, okay, well, that's all right. Is that, you know what I'm getting at? Is Denmark, France on a similar scale as that? Because they just, I don't know, boys. It's almost, maybe I'm thinking about it too much, but to see a bit of that in the game that we love in football, I think, I had a bet on that game. I bet 0-0, I won it. I bet the draw, I won it. I think everybody knew that game was going to end in a draw before the match started. So that's probably my bad, as well as Australia going out. Tony, got an ugly?
Well, we just touched on it, but Timo Werner was literally. I don't care for Germany. I couldn't care less if they went out or not. I was literally sitting here screaming at my TV with how bad he was. Like, just everything he done was wrong. He had 2 good chances. He just missed the target massively. He moved out. His positioning was awful. I don't know what he was doing. Then he went out wide, and I think about 3 times in a row, he just ran off the pitch with the ball. He went out wide, didn't beat anyone, didn't cross the ball. I don't know what he done. And I think it's more disappointing is I haven't seen loads of him before, but everyone talks up how good he is and how much he's going to be the next such and such and how he's a great striker. And I mean, like, I don't want to completely judge a player based on 3 games, but I watched it and just thought, what's he good at? Like, it's all well and good.
Agree, totally.
It's all well and good being able to, like, they keep going on about his pace and he can run in behind. Well, first of all, as soon as he goes to a bigger club, if he goes to a Bayern Munich or whatever, that space in behind isn't going to exist anymore. And you've got to have more to it than that. Otherwise, just get Usain Bolt, because I can guarantee Usain Bolt runs in that space quicker. Like, I literally saw nothing from him, and I was quite surprised because when they kept going on about him being quick on the UK commentary, but at one point they went, he's really quick. He runs 100 meters in 11.05, I think they said. And look, of course, I'm a fat slob that sits on my sofa, so that's quick. But that's not in terms of footballers. Like quick, who I would class as quick footballers, that's not overly fast. I think that's a lot slower than what Theo Walcott can do it in. So I was just sitting there thinking, well, you're a player that relies on your pace, but you're not stupid quick. You can't play when there's a packed defence. You go out wide and just run off the pitch. Why are you there? Like, what are you doing? And why have you not come off? I would rather have played Draxler as a false 9, which I know they tried before.
Well, I was going to ask you, who would they play? Okay, so Draxler.
Well, obviously, I mean, they bring Gomez on at half-time or just after, and it gave them that bit more height, and it probably made Ozil a bit more successful. In the first half, I messaged Twin, is in our WhatsApp group, and Ozil got the ball in that inside right channel, opened his body up, and no one went back post, and the ball just went out for a goal kick. And again, I was screaming at my TV. Like, anyone that's ever played with or watched Ozil for more than 5 minutes knows if he's in that right channel and he opens up, just run at the back post. That's where the ball's going, and it will go there well. And in the second half, Gomez made that run a couple of times. Hummels made the run a couple of times, and they missed chances from. But as I said, in the first half, when it was Werner, he just didn't make a run. So they brought Gomez on at half-time, which was obviously one of their options. But I don't know, he's not the best, is he? No. And I just don't know. I don't know what they were trying to do. It made no sense. And I mean, they didn't help themselves. They bring a big man on, but then Werner moved out to the left and he can't cross the ball, and he tries to beat everyone on the outside, but then he's got no left foot and runs off the pitch. Kimmich, for me, is very overrated. His delivery is quite good when he decides to do it, but he takes so long. It's like he has to have a 5-minute think about whether he's going to try and take the man on first, but when the box is as packed as that, just get the ball in. So it was weird. It was kind of like there was no plan, or it was like, or not. There was a plan, obviously, get the big man on, but it was like the rest of the players didn't know that was the plan. It was just weird. It was really un-German-like. I mean, usually, even when I've seen some shit Germany teams, but at a minimum, they usually organise and know what they're doing. Even if they've got terrible players, they're not playing well. They tend to know what they're doing, and that team just looked like they were just winging it. Does
the manager come under scrutiny now?
I literally just heard on the radio before we started recording that they've basically said his job's safe, but it would surprise me if it is, because Germany work in cycles, and I would suggest that this cycle's come to an end. In 2 years' time, maybe most of these players are still going to be there. I don't think there's any that will be at retirement age in 2 years' time for the Euros, but I don't think many of them will be making the next World Cup.
Is that your next biggest tournament, or Germany's biggest Euros?
Yeah, it'll be the Euros in 2 years, and then obviously the World Cup in another 4. But the way Germany work in cycles, I wouldn't be surprised if the team that won the Confederations Cup 2 years ago, or last year, whenever it was, which was essentially an under-23 side, I wouldn't be surprised if they now become the first team and they go for a new cycle with a new manager. Obviously, they'll keep some of the names in. People like Kimmich will still be integrated, and he may have even played in the Confederations Cup, I can't remember. But I would imagine it will be a start of a new cycle for Germany now.
Okay.
We have our resident German who will know a lot better than me. So,
and the only reason I ask is the biggest tournament because Australia's got the Asian Championships coming up, I think, in January. So Germany's got nothing.
No, we're every 2 years. So in the summer, every 2 years. But if Korea don't win that, they have to. All of their players that reach 28 have to do national service, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah. For all Koreans, you have to do national service by the age of 28 unless you win the Asian Games or get to the semi-final of the World Cup. So there's been a lot of rumours. I don't know if there've been worldwide rumours, but in England about teams looking at Son from Tottenham and Tottenham being open to sell. But I think he's 27, so if they don't win the Asian Games, he's either going to have to basically flee from Korea, which probably isn't the best idea. Especially when you're on TV every week, or go back and do national service for 2 years.
Well, there you go.
Unless they make an exception for him, but I don't think they've ever made an individual exception before. So obviously, the team that got to the 2002 semi-final had players like Park Ji-sung in, so he never had to do national service. But I don't think they've ever made an exception for, say, they've gone, he's worth 50, 60 million, whatever he's worth. We'll make an exception for him. I don't think they've ever acted like that before.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No. First I've heard of it. That's interesting. Schwinn, you got an ugly?
I'll have to continue with Germany here. Of course, I spoke about, the on the field stuff for the bad, but I think some things that have been overlooked started before the tournament, and that was how divided the squad was. Of course, what happened with Sané, clearly left a dent in the squad. If you are to believe rumors and all these reports coming out of the camp, there were two different groups essentially. One were the Bavarians, and the other were people who constituted with the likes of Mesut Ozil, Jerome Boateng, and Julian Draxler, and there was serious concern about Yogi Low leaving Leroy Sané out, and that sort of perpetuated even more cracks between relationships. Mats Hummels came out and said that Sané will get his chance. He's young, and that didn't sit well with some of the other players. And I think that was the beginning of what we saw as a capitulation of the team. I think when you're trying to go for one of the biggest trophies in the world in sport, you need to have unity, and all these things sound very cliched, but especially as defending champions, you need to have this sort of solidarity which just didn't exist. And I keep coming back to the fact that this was not very German. You don't hear of all these things when you're talking about Germany. There's this mechanical sense that one has about the nation and about how they operate, and I feel that they were bested this time by their own limitations and involving emotion in a lot of things. Mats Hummels came out after the game and said that we haven't played a decent game, or I'm paraphrasing here, since 2016, and I think he was spot on. Ever since the World Cup, the previous World Cup, of course, I think there's been a genuine decline, and just like me, I think most German fans have sort of been oblivious to it, and I think it's been a self-administered oblivion. We've sort of been ignorant towards it, and I think it hit us the hardest when it came to this World Cup. And it was ugly. It was very ugly. The backlash that followed was ugly. I saw a lot of people from the German Bundestag, the Dresdner Party, Jens Meyer in particular, tweeting about how if Mesut Ozil was not there, then things would have been different. There was obviously a bit of a right-wing element to that when you have politicians getting involved and saying one thing and not the other. So it wasn't pretty before the World Cup started, it wasn't pretty during the World Cup, and it wasn't pretty afterwards. And all in all, ugly, I think, is the right word to sum up all that.
Who are you going for now, mate?
As I shared with you guys, I have a Radamel Falcao jersey that some of my friends gifted me because I'm a massive Falcao fan. So since I have that on me, I thought, why not Colombia and maybe try and spoil the coming home party.
Fuck's sake. Oh, fuck, I've got nothing. Colombia. Okay, so you'll knock England out?
I think we can. I think that's a possibility. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Jesus Christ.
No, I think Colombia stands a chance. I mean, of course, James is going to be missed. I'm not sure what the murmurs are, but Tony did tell me right before we started recording that he might not be available. That seems to be the verdict so far. I think they'll struggle a lot against England, but there's a lot of Colombia fandom around America. There's a lot of pretty women that support Colombia, and that gives me another reason to wear my Falcao kit and walk around the town.
Okay, so if I sent you over a Russian jersey, then you'd be following Russia. No,
as long as it's got Golovin on the back.
Mexico. That's
fuck Mexico and everything they stand for, because these fuckers. Now that you brought me on,
said nothing.
Now that you brought me onto this, you shouldn't have. But they're fucking partying all over town, which is great. That's what you should do. But it should be a pro-Mexico party and not an anti-Germany party. You know what I'm saying? And these fuckers go up to the South Korean consulate in Mexico City and start celebrating with them fuckers. Don't get me started on fucking Heung-min Son and Tottenham Twitter that fucking exploded because they somehow knocked out Mesut Ozil and Germany from the World Cup. No, you just knocked out Germany from the World Cup. They're not separate items. It's just been so diabolical that I don't want to get into that. But fuck Mexico, and I hope that they get knocked out in the next round.
At Donald Trump, when are you building the wall?
Yeah, you sound really annoyed with Mexico. You should maybe build a wall or something.
No comment.
No comment. I knew it was going to happen. Okay, my ugly. I've got two. Argentina got that victory in the last, whatever it was, couple of minutes or whatnot. Did you see the crackhead up in the stands? Off his fucking chops? Maradona, did you see him?
But are we still talking about ugly, or are we talking about beautiful now?
Oh, mate, he was off chops. I'm like, come on. Did you see?
Oh, he was cooked out.
Oh, fucking cooked.
I actually feel sorry for maybe people slightly that have young kids that are watching for the first time, and Maradona was their hero, and they're trying to tell their kid, no, Messi's not the best player ever, Maradona is, and then the kids are watching this World Cup. And they're like, oh, that's the guy at the start of the game when he looks a bit fresh. Like, oh, he was once the best player that's ever stood on this earth. And then it gets to the end of the game, and you've got this fat slob who can barely stand up
with his fingers up. Yeah, fuck you.
What chance have you got as a parent if you're trying to tell, oh, this is the best guy ever? It's like me. I think probably. I mean, I caught the back end of Gaza, but had I been a little bit younger, and my dad was saying, "Oh, Gaza is the best English player we've had in a long time," and I'd just see this alcoholic, it'd have been like, "What, really?"
No, that was ugly, boys. I reckon that was ugly.
To be fair, just because I sort of disagree with that,
yeah.
I mean, I know what everyone is talking about, and I think it's best left that we just say allegedly he was seen doing stuff and passing stuff around. But I mean, let's give the man a break. Wherever he goes, cameras are going to follow him, whether it's a shopping mall or a stadium full of 60,000 people, and the man's going to do what he's going to do, right? If it was someone else, we'd probably not be talking about him. I think too often as fans, we tend to look at people and see what they're up to even after their careers are done. For me, football ends on the field, and what you do off it has no business. I have nothing to do with that. And the man's just there supporting his team and supporting, his team's bid for the World Cup. So, I mean, I'm not condoning stuff or anything, but I think we're probably going into it a bit too much.
I think it was still off chops.
You make that sound like a bad thing, though.
Mate, he looked a mess, an absolute mess. He was a disgrace to his nation, and I bet you he won't be welcomed in Nigeria for any time soon. But another bad I've got, ugly, sorry, and it's only top of hit the press over here today, so it might have even got over years. But anyway, the ex-Australian manager or coach, he basically came out today and pretty much I think it might have been yesterday, and he's wrote an article. We've got a thing here called The Player's Voice, and basically, you don't write it in the journalism, so it doesn't hit main media. The player's voice is coming straight from the player, the manager, or whoever's writing the article. So it's not up for questions. So when you write something, it's your story and that's it. Nobody questions you about it, and there's no questions asked about it. basically he come out and he said, and he quit 6 months before the World Cup, and he said we should have played more attacking football. Australia went down 2-0 to Peru. We scored a couple of penalties, and he would rather see Australia go out with scoring 6 goals than what we did. I agree with that a little bit. However, what I don't agree with is you walked away from that national team, or our national team, 6 months ago, and you wiped your hands of it because it got too much for you. Now, I'm sorry, but you cut your ties there, and I don't think you should be coming back with a response on how the Australian team went, because he had the opportunity, he had the chance to take us to the World Cup, and he wiped his hands of it. So that's my other ugly, boys. Now, I want to just ask you, lads, a couple of games. So, Spain versus Russia. Tony?
Spain have got too much, I think. I think, saying that, obviously Russia have got home advantage, even though I think Spain are technically at home on the draw. Russia have got home advantage. I don't know if it stacks after the third game, but after the first 2 games, they've ran so much more than everyone else. So let's just assume they've got superior levels of fitness. Will that be enough to counteract Spain's holding the ball? When you look at it like that, it actually makes a good clash of styles. But for me, I think Spain have just got a bit too much for them.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'll have to agree with that.
Spain, Croatia, Denmark. Tony?
Interesting one. Croatia have probably looked the best side so far. Denmark just don't really concede goals. Croatia's, all of their games have been open. That's a lie. I didn't watch the Iceland game. I've only seen the highlights, but it was a kind of dead rubber. Argentina was obviously very open, and Nigeria was quite open. It will be interesting to see how good they are when a team stops them playing. I think part of the reason Croatia have looked so good is because they've not faced any complete minnows like your Koreas, who their job is just to stop you. And that's pretty much what Denmark do, but with a bit more quality. Obviously, they've got players like Eriksson, who have a bit more quality. So I expect Croatia, but I think it'll be very, very tight.
Okay, Schwinn?
Croatia. I think Denmark has had their say in the World Cup, and I think Croatia is just going to trample over them.
Yeah, I'm going to go Spain for the first, and I'm going to say Denmark, boys, for the second. I almost think that game might come down to penalties.
I wouldn't be surprised if it goes extra time and penalties. As I said, I think Denmark's main focus will be to stop Croatia.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to penalties, and then you might say Denmark, I'll go Denmark victory. So we got Sweden and Switzerland. Tony?
Switzerland. I think, again, Sweden are very good at stopping teams, but Switzerland are very organised themselves, and they just have that little bit more quality.
Schwinn?
1-0 Sweden, 85th minute, Granit Xhaka from 40 yards.
He plays for Switzerland, not Sweden. But
oh, that's what I meant to say, my mistake.
I think that's another game that I think's got the potential extra time label hanging over it as well, to be honest.
Just quickly though, because we brought up Switzerland, what do you think of the? I would have gotten your press over there. Couple of match bans. No, well, they didn't happen. They got a fine. Granit Xhaka and who was the other guy?
Well, it's Shaqiri, Xhaka, and Lichtsteiner.
Yeah. So what was your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's nothing in it. It's a celebration. Look, that same celebration's been done by players the world over. When they do it, it does have a bit more political meaning, but it's football. You can't have one rule apart from goalkeepers. You can't have one rule for some players and a different rule for others. So you can't have, say, Harry Kane done that same celebration and say, oh, no, that's fine, he can do that. But then someone else do it and say, oh, no, that's a 2-match ban. You can't do that. So, as I said, there's been players that have done that celebrations for years. I remember Yakubu used to do it every time he scored in the Premier League. So, for me, I understand that there is a political significance, but it is what it is. I think no ban was the right decision.
Yeah, okay. So if they got a ban, you'd be thinking, oh, it's pretty filthy.
Yeah, I think it's a joke. And I'm not saying that because two of them play for Arsenal, but as I said, you can't ban one player for something that others have got away with forever.
Mm-hmm. You agree, Schwinn?
Yeah, I don't think FIFA should get involved. I think, if anything, it should be the Swiss FA that, would probably take disciplinary measures if it's unacceptable to them. But I don't think FIFA has anything to do with this.
Okay. Colombia, England, Tony.
Heart
tells you England.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, look, I still don't particularly rate England. I've remained consistent with that throughout the tournament. The bookies will have England as favourites. I don't know if we are. Oh, England are huge favourites. The bookies have got this so wrong. Because even if England are favourites, for me, I think England should go in as tight favourites, just about favourites. But
actually,
the bookies have got
dead right.
Massive favourite.
Yeah.
Yes. For me, the gap's far too wide. But I don't know. It's a really tough one to call. As I said, I've not been impressed with them. I've not been impressed with England. I don't know. I'm going to do a Schwinn and sit on the bench.
You got to go with your heart and say England.
10-0.
Schwinn? Oh,
I'll have to say England as well, actually.
You're going against your new team, the Colombians. We the Colombians are not necessarily in the strongest position right now, and I think England have a lot going for them right now. I think they've been very good in the 3 games they've played. Of course, one was a heavily rotated side, but they have a game plan. As unorthodox and as simple the game plan might be, I think it works for them. We've spoken about James and about how he might be missing, and I think Colombia just don't have enough to make it through the tournament. Even if they get through right now, I don't think they'll do very well. Not necessarily in the next round, but the one after that, which will be the semifinals. So it's a tough one to call, but my instinct says it's going to be England who gets the win. Okay, I'm going to go Colombia. Yes, you're right with Rodriguez. He's out. But is John Stones out too? I'm just looking here.
So Rodriguez isn't confirmed out. And to be honest, I was saying to Schwinn before we was recording, if I was Colombia, regardless of whether James was injured or not, I would say he was. Because you're comparing for a completely different side with him. So I would tell everyone he's out and then bring him in last minute. So we don't know on that one. I'm not sure on Stones. I literally have no idea.
Yeah, okay.
I think I don't even know what it is that he's injured, and I don't know if he was taken off as a precaution or if he's completely gone. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Uruguay, Portugal.
Very tight. I'm just going to back Ronaldo. Not even Portugal. I'm backing Ronaldo.
Yep, very cool.
Yeah, but they'll again. This is another one that could easily go extra time because they're two stubborn defences. That both teams aren't particularly bothered about attack. It's a strange one because you look at the players and you say there's probably 3 of the best attackers in world football or whatever, but neither side are particularly bothered about attacking. So it's. I think the team that attacks more will probably end up losing because they're both counter-attacking sides. And I think whatever team leaves their own way of playing and tries to go for the win will probably get caught out. And I think that Uruguay are probably more likely, they're probably a bit more not as streetwise. So they're more likely to abandon their own style because the other team's not attacking them. Whereas Portugal couldn't care less, and they showed that in the Euros. If you want to put 10 men behind the ball, they'll make 10 men behind the ball and take it to penalties and back themselves. Whereas, as I said, I think Uruguay are probably a bit less streetwise in that sense, and they'll probably start going for it, and then it will leave the space on the counter that Portugal won.
You're impressed with our new unconfirmed Arsenal player in Torreira the other week. Who was that against?
Against Russia, he was very good.
Russia. Russia was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a very good game. It's one of them, if you made a highlights reel from it, it wouldn't be impressive. But he done a lot of the gritty work. He kept the ball moving. He had a few duels he won, a few battles he won, a few tackles. I still think, and I said this a few weeks ago as well, I still think he leaves his feet too easily. He slides in too much. And it will cost him at some point.
Hopefully. But Emery will get that out of his game, though, I think.
Oh, it's something very minor. The thing is, it is successful a lot. So it's something that a coach may not want to take out of his game. But I just think he leaves the ground too much. But he had a very, very good game.
Schwinn, Uruguay, Portugal?
Or, as some might call it, the Portugal of South America versus the Uruguay of Europe. I think Tony's spot on with his analysis. I was about to, pretty much say the same thing. I think Uruguay are going to be the ones who take up the ball, although they like sitting back, and Portugal are going to let them attack. And on the break, Portugal are going to do what Portugal do best. I think this is also a good time just to talk about that Quaresma goal from this past week, which, there's not a whole lot you can say about it except just go on YouTube and see Quaresma score those pretty much every month. It's a staple for him, and what a goal that was. I think it's up there in terms of the best goals scored this tournament. But I really want to see Ronaldo versus Messi next round. So based on that, I'll have to go with Portugal.
I'm going to go Uruguay. So I'm going against you, boys. And a few, actually. France, Argentina, Tony?
Well, I know Schwinn's going to go Argentina because of what he's just said. But for me, I think France comfortably. They've not been good, but they've been a damn sight better than Argentina have.
Yeah. I've never seen Argentina so bad, I don't think. What is
they're just so open. There's just so much wrong with them. So for me, I think France pretty comfortably. Even it maybe not so in scoreline. It may only be a 1 or 2 goal win, but I think when you watch a game and you can see who's dictating it and who's controlling it, I can't see anything but a France win, especially with Argentina's major weakness. They're terrible at the back, but they literally have no midfield. And Pogba, Kante, and one other, whoever they decides to be on that game, whether it be Matuidi or Tolisso, there's just so much control there. So, yeah, I would imagine that, for me, I think France pretty comfortably.
Okay, and you're going Argentina, Schwinn?
See.
Okay. Anything to add on that? Why are you going then?
Is that what you think or what you want?
It's what I want. It's also to an extent what I think. If I was a betting man, which of course, as you boys know, I'm not, I'd probably even put money on them because I think the odds.
That's why you're not a betting man.
Well, I just don't give into that vice. There's a lot of other vices that I have to deal with at the moment. But I think I obviously want Messi to go on from here. But I also think that, as Tony just mentioned, that France have not impressed so far. They've been on sort of cruise control. So, you don't want to give them too much heat either. But I think this game is not as easy as one would imagine in terms of calling it outright. On paper, it's very level pegged. If you didn't know what happened in the last couple of weeks, and I think come this time of the tournament, there's a lot more sincerity. And I know the issues still exist with Argentina, particularly the midfield, as Tony just said. But I think there's something about having a player like Messi and having some options on the bench who, of course, have not performed up till now. But, these players are conditioned to perform at the highest level under pressure. And when they go up against some of the better players in the world, I think they sometimes tend to perform better. So I'm taking a wild swing here. It's obviously based on, no sort of metrics, but I have a good feeling about Argentina.
Okay, I'm going to go France. Brazil, Mexico, Tony?
Brazil, but a lot tighter than people think.
Schwinn?
Neither. Let's move on.
Someone's got to win.
Someone's got to win. What do you mean?
Nah, I can't root for either. Not for me.
I'm going to go Mexico.
Fuck off. Well, my reaction would have been the same if you said Brazil too, so I don't know what to say here.
I think it'll beat Brazil. Belgium, Japan, obviously. Belgium, Tony?
Yeah,
they've been good,
pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
You agree, Schwinn?
Yeah.
You don't like Japan? What do you got against Japan?
I got nothing against Japan, and nothing at all.
You sure?
So far, yes.
Well, you don't like Brazil, you don't like Mexico. I just want to make sure.
Well, I feel like a Germany defeat just sort of united South America and Central America and even North America to an extent. So anything to do with the Americas, except Colombia, I'm good for now. But Japan, I have no problem with Japan. They seem like nice blokes, but I don't think there's a whole lot to them.
Okay. Righto. We're going to get into some calls very shortly, a couple of live callers to come on. But just quickly, boys, I'm just going to touch on some quick stats. So obviously the team rating according to Opta is Belgium are the team who have performed the best. Now, they've been good, but have they been against what was their best opposition? It's been and no offence to you, Tony, with England, but it has been.
No, the best team they've played is England reserves.
Yeah, it's a weak group, so I wouldn't take that into too much consideration. Shots on target against Belgium, most accurate passes are Spain, clean sheets Uruguay, possession 1 Argentina, goals Belgium, goals conceded was Panama, big chance misses Uruguay, penalties conceded Denmark, and little Australia's got the most awarded penalties. Most yellow cards.
There's only, I find it more interesting, and I was looking for somewhere to fit this in, that off the top of my head, I think there's only been 3 teams that have got 9 points, which I think probably before the tournament, we would have guessed it a lot more. I think we would have put Germany in there for a start.
Yep.
But yeah, it's only Uruguay, Croatia, and Belgium that got 9 points, which is a bit of, well, it surprised me.
Yeah, Germany, France, I would have put in there. I would have put Belgium. Yeah, Belgium did. You said that. Yeah, no, I totally agree there. Just quickly, and before we go, Egypt. What was your thoughts on their World Cup, boys? Because Mo Salah was a lot of people riding him as to take Egypt to that next out of the group stage and into the next spot. And as we see, Russia managed to get it. What was your thoughts on Egypt, Tony?
Said they would flop before the tournament. They flopped.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I said Mo Salah would be the flop of the tournament, I think.
I think he nearly. Well, no, probably Timo Werner.
No, it's not fair to say he was. I was wrong in that. I mean, he played 2 games and got 2 goals, so you can't really criticise him. But I just knew he wasn't going to get the service there. I didn't have them going through the group, and they didn't go through the group. I didn't expect them to come bottom. I didn't expect them to lose to Saudi Arabia, but they did. But I mean, it is what it is. In reality, they're not very good. Salah's had an exceptional year, and let's say he's an exceptional player. El Neni's bang average, and that's their second best player. Look, you've got Sam Morsey in the squad who was playing in League One with Wigan. You've got players, championship players at absolute best playing. In the last game, they've got a keeper that's 110 years old. Like, they're just not very good.
Yeah, I know. How old's that player? He's about 47 or something, isn't he?
46. I think he's 45 and 300 and something days. It's just like...
Fucking unbelievable. Schwinn, I'll just touch quickly with you, mate, on Poland. And I know you're a Lewandowski fan. I thought he had a very, very poor World Cup.
I would agree. The team in general, I mean, as we're talking about this, I'm looking at some of the picks we had made when we were previewing the World Cup, and for me, Poland was my dark horse. Now, I do like Lewandowski a lot. I think he's the perfect striker in my opinion, and that was on display when you watch the qualifiers. I think they were extremely good in the qualifiers. Lewandowski couldn't stop scoring, and they didn't concede a whole lot. They were a proper unit with a proper game plan. You can argue about the sanctity of the game plan, but it worked for them. And in this tournament, they were one of the worst performing teams. Even if they got a point more, I think because their victory on the last game day, if you look at some of the other teams, you didn't expect certain performances, and Poland was right in there. I think they were very, very poor. No communication. Lewandowski is not necessarily a leader, and I think that was on display as well. It was very, very sad for me to watch them go out because I thought they had it more in them to do well and maybe even cause an upset in the next round. And that's what I had. I had Poland beating Belgium, which was going to be my big upset. So that's obviously not going to be the case. But I feel bad for Wojciech Szczesny. I thought he had a decent chance, and of course he's a goalkeeper, so he's probably going to figure around for a lot longer. But again, for Lewandowski, I'm a bit torn because I wanted him to do well this time out.
Mm-hmm. Didn't bloody Colombia. You boys watch that game against Poland? Fuck, they ran right over them.
They were very, very good. That's the Poland. That's the Colombia that England don't want to play.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Okay, that's about it on the group stages, boys. Nothing else there that jumps out at you? Iceland. No. We type of expected Iceland, didn't we? The Viking Clap wasn't going to get them through. So.
Well, I think we all had Croatia. Well, I know I did. I think we all had Croatia and Argentina. We had it the other way around, but we all had the two teams that were going through in that group, I think.
Serbia. Nobody had Serbia there, did we?
No one had Serbia.
No. France.
Sweden was picked by Tony. Tony was the only one who picked Sweden going through.
Oh, really? Who'd we pick? Oh, we picked Germany, Mexico.
That's right.
I only said that because it was in Europe. That was literally, I remember saying, it's just because it's in Europe. It was the only reason.
Who'd we have in Group H, Swin?
We had Colombia. All three of us had Colombia going through as number one. And Tony and me had Poland, and you had Japan, Tez.
Oh, yeah. By sheer fluke, boys. Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay. Each and every week we have a couple of live listeners who join us for a chat, which is brilliant, and ask us a couple of questions. You too can get involved with that on Skype. You can follow us at clockend_talk, and you'll be able to follow the links and find the links and whatnot there and join us for a Skype chat. This week we've got Texas Gooner. How are you, mate?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. You got a question for the boys?
Yeah, I do. And it is regarding our captain situation. So I feel like our previous appointed captains, it's been something of a moot point. With Arteta, went to Mertesacker when he was injured, and then from Mertesacker, he had a long-term injury. Went to Koscielny. My question is, with Koscielny out on with a long-term injury, is it time we appoint a captain who will actually feature week in, week out, and if so, who's your choice?
Tony?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I've spoke about captains on here a lot, and I think that the role of a captain is completely gone. And I think, I know I've done it on here before, but if you look at, say, the top 6 or 7 teams, and you really struggle to name a captain, and if you do name a captain, it's not someone that plays every week. Like Man United the past season had Carrick as captain in a similar way we had Mertesacker. Chelsea, I think it's still Cahill, but he had spent large portions of the season just finished not in the side. Company again at City didn't play most of the season, so I think the role as we know it has changed. So in that way, it wouldn't surprise me if Koscielny's still captain. I wouldn't. I'm the type of person that prefers someone that's going to be in the side every week. But as I said, football just doesn't seem to be doing that anymore. If we were to do that, for me, there's only 2 choices, and I think there's negatives for both of them. For me, it would be out of Xhaka and Ramsey. The issue is Ramsey, we still don't know if he's signing. And obviously, if he doesn't, he's not going to be in the team next year because we'd sell him. And similar with Xhaka, if we don't play the flat 3 that I'm expecting, if we go 4-2-3-1, then we've obviously, pending confirmation, we spent quite a lot of money on Lucas Torreira. And then you'd imagine Ramsey is essentially is an essential in the team if he does sign, which means Xhaka wouldn't be in the team. So that leaves for me that there's doubts over, for me, the only 2 candidates. I don't know what the other boys and what you think on the same question, obviously.
Schwinn?
I'll have to agree. I think the first point is that the role of the captain has been seriously diminished. So we have to understand what will be required of the captain from the manager's perspective. If it's someone who he needs on the field as a deputy, then the only 2 candidates in my mind, as Tony said, are also Granit Xhaka and Aaron Ramsey. I mean, I'd slap the band on Xhaka's arm without even thinking twice, but if that's something that Aaron is desperate for and wants and is going to be a stipulation in his contract, then I wouldn't think twice about giving Aaron the armband. So it all depends on how those negotiations play out. But if Aaron was, let's assume, already signed for the next 4 years without this being an issue, Granit would be my first choice.
Yeah, well, you all know what my choice is going to be, boys. It's got to be fucking Granit. But in saying that, I would like to know, would you like to get back, and I'll go back to you, Texas Gurner, would you like Arsenal to get back to, or football in general, to get back to a captain that, you know, like the old days, or are we moving to this, what's the captain really do? Apart from, you know, if someone's a yellow card, then they'll run up and have an argument with the ref, or a bit of moral support on the field, I suppose. But what is the actual role of a captain as well?
Yeah, you know, I'd like to see it go back to the old days, kind of like the Vieira or Tony Adams, and kind of the role they played. But I honestly don't see it going back to the way it was. Kind of see it as a modern captain. And as far as what I would like to see, I mean, I would like to see the captain appointed that plays week in, week out, someone who's pivotal in our side, and someone who, you know, demonstrates good leadership qualities on the pitch. So, and even technical speaking, like a technical leader. I would say my choice would be Xhaka, and I believe he was appointed captain at Mönchengladbach for a period as well, if I recall.
Yep. And Switzerland as well. So you know, he's got the assets to be the captain, but and I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, but I was thinking like as Tony was talking about Ramsey too, because obviously for me, you know, it was obviously between Granit and Jack Wilshere, but now Jack's gone. It's I don't see anybody else who has that. When you watch Granit play, he has that love for the club, and I don't know if Ramsey has that. And I don't, you know, I probably shouldn't say that, but when I see a contract, you know, he still hasn't signed and he hasn't dedicated his future to Arsenal, well, I tend to wonder whether he deserves that responsibility, Tony.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't. People display their I don't want to say love or passion, but I can't think of any better words, in different ways. And you could look at it differently. Who leads by example more? You've got Ramsey, who plays a huge part in Arsenal history. Obviously ending the Barron run with a cup final winner and then scoring another one a couple of years later. When at the moment, and as much as everyone knows I like Granit Xhaka, he plays no part in Arsenal history, whereas Aaron Ramsey does at this moment in time. That's not to say that can't change. So there's different ways of looking at it, and depending on what camp you're in, it's like the old Jack versus Ramsey debate we had a couple of years ago, where whatever side you are, you would find the benefits for your side and the negatives for the other. I think there's the same for that captaincy debate. I think Ramsey's more likely to lead by example in terms of obviously match-winning performances. Granit would probably be more stable, more, I don't want to say consistent, but Aaron, he can turn up anywhere. Whereas Xhaka, you sort of half know where he's going to be, and you can look to him to be a leader there. Whereas Ramsey could pop up on the right wing, or he could pop up at left back. You never know. Some people would see that as he covers every inch of grass. What a captain! He runs all the time, and others would see it as ill-disciplined because he's not in the position he should be. So, as I said, there's pluses and negatives. I just think if they were going to go back to the old traditional method, I would just give it to whatever one's likely to play more. And also, I mean, we always, and especially me, I'm not talking for everyone, but I kind of see Ramsey as a quiet guy. That's the opinion I get of him. Don't really see him screaming and shouting at people too often. But whenever there's these stories that there's been a bust up behind the scenes, or they've had a team meeting, Aaron Ramsey's really heavily involved in them stories. So maybe he may come across as quiet on the pitch, but maybe he is that leader that we all want. we just don't see it in those 90 minutes. I don't know, but obviously I'm just going on the stories that we hear so often.
Yeah, well, he was in the the story was he was the guy in the Sanchez, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it was also in January or February when we was poor, and they had their reported team meeting that they have every year when we're crap, that it was led by him. The one where someone broke down in tears saying my son's embarrassed or whatever it was. Whether it happened or not, I don't know, but the reports was it was Ramsey led. So whenever these reports come out, it's always centered around Ramsey. So maybe he is really passionate and really does care, but he just has a different way of showing it. As I said, different people show it in different ways, and there's a lot more to a football club than the 90 minutes we see on a Saturday, Sunday or Thursday.
Okay, Texas Gunner, thanks for your question, mate.
Cheers.
Enjoying the World Cup, mate?
Oh, yeah. I'm getting to work from home a lot, so I'm catching most games.
Who are you backing?
How's America going?
Good one.
Who are you backing, mate?
Well, I'm back in Sweden now because I was back in Sweden and Germany, but you know what happened to Germany, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
For fuck's sake, get this over with.
Yeah, Schwinn's been very quiet for some reason on the podcast. Almost gone missing today, so anyway.
Fuck off.
We will battle on. Thanks for your call, Texas Gunner.
Anytime.
What's your Twitter handle, mate? We'll give you a shout while you're there.
My Twitter handle?
Yeah, what's your Twitter handle?
At the Texas Gunner.
What about the 22 gun salute? Is that still going?
Yeah, I still have that one. I just haven't had much time to blog lately. But yeah, it's at 22 gun salute and at Texas Gunner.
Okay, so you can follow him on Twitter as well. Thanks, mate. Our next caller is Shree. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Tez, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. And I know your Twitter handle because I fucking practiced it about 10 times. It's at Shree the Gooner.
Oh, you've gotten better at that.
I'm a legend. What's your question for the boys, mate?
I just have a really quick question. I saw a photo on Twitter recently which said Arsenal only has 7 midfielders, if I'm not wrong, or 6. And not considering Ramsey's contract situation, and I'm not considering Torreira here, don't you think that's too low a number for a team that wants to be competitive?
I'll go to you first, Schwinn.
Well, there's 2 ways of looking about this, and I think we'll know a bit more once we see how Emery lines up, because as Tony was speaking for the previous question, I think it depends on the system. If you play 2 midfielders as opposed to 3 midfielders. So if you go back to a 4-2-3-1, or if you stick with a 4-2-3-1, then we might find ourselves in a situation where we have more midfielders than we want, as opposed to the other formation. I agree with the premise of the question. I think there's enough cogs, but I don't know if the cogs fit. We don't know if it's going to be a 4-3-3 and if it's going to be Xhaka, Torreira, and Ramsey. And who deputizes for them? Is Elneny being given the number 4 emblematic of something, or is it just Arsenal, trying to play things? So I think the focus is on the right portion of the team at the moment, but I'm not sure how to answer this without having seen the team play, if that makes sense.
Tony?
Yeah, I've touched on this before, and Schwinn kind of stole my thunder. If we do play 3 in the middle, which, as I said, I'm expecting, I think we're horribly short. I think at the moment we've got Xhaka, Ramsey, obviously Maitland-Niles has been promoted, Elneny, and then Torreira. It looks like he's done, but that's it. So five players for 3 places, but if you think you're going to be playing twice a week pretty much every week, there's no real room for someone's going to have to play a hell of a lot of football, and you don't overly want to do that. So I think we're very short, especially considering I think Maitland-Niles, it's going to be a proper breakthrough season this season, when it's his first season that you could probably class him as a first team player properly. We came into the start of last season, no one considered him a first-team player. Now we do. So I think we're short. But as we've said, if we play 2 there, then suddenly it's 5 into 2, and it's not so bad. Look, we've been linked with a hell of a lot of centre midfielders, so it seems the club would see us as short. So I think I'll answer from what it seems that Arsenal feel like, or Emery feels like, that we're short in that area. I would say we're short regardless, but I think if we're going to be playing 3 there, we're maybe too short. If we're going to play 2, then maybe only 1 more. I think only 1 more will come in anyway, but I think that could still leave us short if we do play that flat 3.
Okay. What's your thoughts on that, Shrey?
I missed quite a lot of that because I'm driving, but...
No, that's all right, mate. No worries at all. Well, thanks for joining us, mate, and I hope you join us again.
Yes. I'm excited to.
No, good on you, mate. And you too can join us at clockend_talk on Twitter, and just like Shrey and Texas Schooner did, you can ask the boys a question on the podcast. Thank you. Thanks, boys. Okay, boys, we've got a fair few user questions or listener questions on our Twitter account, so we'll nail through these. Schwinn MAA Gunner, he says Schwinn never told us how he met Wilshere and become his football friend.
No, it's far from being a football friend. It was, as I said, about 12, 13 years ago or something like that. It was at the Hale End Academy where I was visiting, and I was taking a tour, and there happened to be some Arsenal players around during the summertime. So Jack Wilshere was one of them, and I had a brief chat with him, maybe 2-3 minutes. So as I said on the pod last week, it wasn't anything special in terms of the meet itself, but the fact that I got to meet him, shake hands with him, and exchange a couple of pleasantries, that in itself was very special.
Basically, you've just said holding hands with a 13-year-old boy was very special.
Yeah, but to be fair, I was pretty young myself at that point, so I think I'm in the clear then.
Tony, I'm going to cop a bit of shit again because I just can't pronounce that bloke's name. Schwinn, that bloke from last week.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about, William?
Kaglar. Oh, Kaglar, is it? Well, how did we get fucking Soyuncu?
No, that's his surname, but he wears Kaglar on the back of his shirt.
Okay, so we're just going to call him Kaglar. So anyone asking questions from now on, it's Kaglar. Tony, what's going on with Kaglar, and how true is... I haven't heard of this rumour. Benatia?
Benaya. Yeah.
I haven't even heard of that rumour.
So, it's been around forever. So with Kaglar, it's a weird one because there was quotes put out that we commented on, basically him saying it's that I've basically accepted a deal with Arsenal, but it's down to them to reach an agreement with Freiburg. About a day later, his agent come out and said them quotes are fake. It was obviously not reported. It was none of the quotes, if they are real or if not, were made to either a German or Turkish paper. A lot of times, especially if they're not recorded, agents will come out and say quotes are fake just to try and avoid any wrongdoing, so to speak. So the agent said them quotes are fake. Whether they are or not, I don't know. It's very rare for a paper to run with completely fake quotes. They make shit up all the time. But usually if they've got a quote in there, they have had that quote from somewhere, because otherwise they could be sued to high heavens.
So this is on Kaglar.
Yeah. So it's easy enough to make something up, but as soon as you put them quotation marks in the media, you're playing a dangerous game. So the agent said them quotes are fake. Whether they are or not, I don't know. If they are real, then it looks like a transfer is very likely. If they're not, then I don't know really where it leaves us, because I don't know how far along the deal is. If they're not true, then it just probably remains at interest. We're interested, but I don't know how far along the line it is. In terms of Benatia, Holding and Chambers have both signed new long-term contracts. Whether one or both of them go out on loan, I'd imagine one of them will. I'd imagine Holding will. We're still probably one light, and with potential of Mustafi leaving. Not there's been any rumours, but think obviously Socrates is coming in on Monday, I think it is. So we can afford to get rid of a centre-back. So I don't know if the Benatia rumours are true. I would imagine we'd only get one of Caglar or Benatia.
Who do you rate out of both of them?
It's different. I've not seen a huge amount of Caglar. He's young and promising. From what I read, he's good now, but still quite raw, but has the potential to be a lot better. Mm-hmm. Whereas Benatia is, I think, 31 now. He's been there and done it all. He's at Juventus currently. He's been at Bayern Munich. Maybe reaching towards the end, I'd say he's probably less likely due to just signing Socrates, who's of a similar profile in terms of age.
Yeah, okay, no worries. I'm just looking, where does that Caglar, where's he play?
He's at Freiburg in Germany, in Bundesliga.
Freiburg, okay. Have you seen much of them, Schwinn?
No, I've only seen Freiburg when they've played like a big team, but not something I've been noticing.
Okay, we touched on this one earlier, boys. MAA Gunner, he's just talking about the Ozil criticisms a bit. Is it too harsh? To be honest, I don't see what more he could have done. He's created more chances than anyone in the World Cup. He had nothing to defend because they were in control. Some passes were unsuccessful because Korea were well organised. Any of you boys want to make a comment on that? Because we did talk about it earlier.
No, I think it goes on to ask, if I remember rightly, that would the criticism be the same if he wasn't at Arsenal? And I think the answer to that is no. Okay. He obviously broke the mould in terms of us spending money. He's obviously no longer our record transfer, but he was for a long time, and he was a big jump. It was over double the previous record. So it was something to take shots at instantly. Also, our fan base is not the best in terms of being supportive of our players.
I wish we were. I wish we'd get.
Yeah, so do I. But I don't think I've ever seen any other. I've not at the moment. I can't think of it at the World Cup. I've seen any other fans slate their own players. So it's obvious that Ozil's going to get the criticism over here. And in Germany, there is I'm not saying all Germans, but there is a bit of I don't want to say racism, but with him, obviously him being majorly Turkish and his meeting with the Turkish president or prime minister a few weeks ago, that's kind of got their backs up. So it's given them a reason to criticise him and blame him for things. I would imagine elsewhere in the world, I'd imagine in Spain, when they talk about Germany's exit, they don't mention Ozil at all. I would imagine. I don't know. I'm not in Spain. But I think it's just the two nations that heavily got I don't want to say an agenda against Ozil, but have got a reason to have a go at him, are the two that are going strong on it being his fault.
Just because you brought up Arsenal players, and it just made me instantly think of Iwobi. I was meaning to ask you earlier. Do you think Nigeria should have played more of Iwobi? And they may have got through? I know it's hard. But
look, I don't know. He started in their first game, and he and them, not just blaming him, but he was poor in a poor side. They then dropped him and were a lot better. They also made other changes. They didn't have the 10 same players and drop Iwobi and suddenly became a good team. They made a few changes and were better. And then the manager stuck with that, which I think is probably understandable. It's unlucky on Iwobi because he was the player that was dropped. It could have been one of many others that could have been dropped after that first game, and many others were. So it's a bit unlucky, and we'll never know if they would have got through with him playing more. Would he change a 2-1 loss to Argentina into a 2-1 win? Who knows? No one will ever know.
Schwinn, so Sarvesh, he says, while you guys are debating about Ozil and Isco, he would take James Rodriguez, I suppose he's talking about, because he just said James, at Arsenal, can create chances and can finish them as well. What do you guys think about him?
I love him. I think he's a fantastic player. He's got everything in him, from a good left foot to be able to find a pass, taking a shot from 30, 40 yards. He's one who lives with the cameras, I think, and he's one of those players who don't seem to be fazed by the stage. I mean, obviously it'd be great to get him, but I don't think that's a possibility at the moment. I think Bayern have or are in the process of making that deal permanent, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you might be.
Sorry, go on, Tony.
There was reports this morning, I don't know how true they are, that Kovac doesn't see him in his plans. I would imagine that's why this question's been asked.
I see. Yeah. So see, I've not read anything of that, and even after knowing that, if that is true, I don't know how we'll fit him into our team at the moment. I think there's quite a few flair players in our team. You know, the likes of Mkhitaryan, Ozil, of course, and maybe even throw Ramsey into that sort of a mold. So, I mean, I think 2 years down the line, maybe, I think it's someone that we can consider depending on how the team shapes up. But at the moment, I think it would be an unnecessary buy, one of luxury and one of perhaps driven by the heart and not so much by the head.
Tony, he's on loan from Real Madrid, so I'd imagine if they break the loan contract, he would just go back to Real Madrid.
I would imagine that there's a no return clause, but that would be circumvented by someone buying him. Obviously, both clubs would have to agree. Both Bayern Munich and Real Madrid would have to agree,
Okay.
and then obviously the buying club. So you could buy him out of the loan. And
So who are you
and
negotiating with, Bayer or Real Madrid?
both.
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 Okay. Yeah, so
Because
could happen.
you'd have to agree a fee with Real Madrid, but then you'd have to agree with Bayern Munich to terminate the loan.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well.
But just to answer the question, and something Schwinn said, and he said it as a positive, and it's probably my only negative with James, but Schwinn just said it's positive. He said he plays for the cameras, and there's no doubt, and he was excellent in the 2014 World Cup. He didn't win the gold. He didn't win the Golden Ball for the best player, but he was by a mile. But the sponsors wanted to give it to Messi. He looked excellent against Poland the other day. I don't think he ever really played well for Real Madrid. At Bayern, I know they weren't elated with him under Ancelotti. I don't know how much better he done under what's his name? The Bayern manager's name, the old geezer.
Oh, bloody.
Jupp Heynckes.
Jupp Heynckes, yeah. So I don't know how much better James done under him. He was good in the Champions League games. They went out to Real Madrid, but again, that's the type of games he's good in because the world's attention's on him. So my only issue, as much as I rate James, is can he do it every week or 7 out of 10 weeks? Because at the moment, what I see from him is when everyone's watching him, he is exceptional. But in the every week games, he's anonymous. I'm not saying he's bad. I've never watched him and thought, geez, he was awful. But I've watched him a lot and thought he wasn't in the game.
Well, you know how to fix that, don't you? You just switch him around with Ozil.
Well, no, I mean, for me, I'm not saying they're the same calibre of player by any sense of the imagination, but it reminds me of a hell of a lot of Moussa Sissoko, the one that went to Tottenham, but in the Euros, in Euro 2016, which got him his move to Tottenham, and in a bit before that for Newcastle. Every time they was on TV, he was excellent, and he was brilliant in the 2016 Euros. He was, I think Griezmann got player of the tournament because he won the Golden Boot, but Sissoko was arguably the player of the tournament. But that's because he was on TV on the big stage. He's gone to Tottenham and he's been awful for 2 years, flat out awful. And I think James, from what I've seen of him, which is quite a lot, is that when he's on that stage, in the big stage, and everyone looks to him, then he can live up to that. But I don't know if he gets himself up enough for the Saturday 3 o'clock.
But then we've got Ozil to play the missing games, and we've got James to play the glory games, eh, Schwinn?
Why? He's our player, boys. Let's not forget, he's our player.
I know, I just love taking the piss. Okay, Tony, I haven't seen these reports, so anyway, you can enlighten me a bit more. What do you think of Jack Wilshere's potential move to Turkey?
You have seen the reports because you've seen the picture of him with too much hair.
Oh, yeah. I did too, that's right.
I don't think it's the best move for him. It will get him out of the limelight, and he's not a fan of the limelight. It's been weird recently because he's done a lot of stuff for PR. Obviously, the way he left, putting the stuff on Twitter. He's released statements quite often over the last 6 months, which is why I've been saying all along for people to follow us on Twitter. He got a PR team in. He must have, because he's not a fan of the limelight. And Fenerbahce will take him out of that. The reports of the finances he's been offered, you'd be an idiot not to accept. And I've seen a lot of people go, I thought it wasn't all about the money. But he accepted Arsenal's money. So it wasn't all about the money, it was about the playing time. Once that playing time didn't get offered at Arsenal, if he does go to Fenerbahce, it looks like he's gone to the highest bidder. But the money is eye-watering. It's unbelievable how much they're offering him. I mean, the reports are 8 million signing on fee and 100 grand a week after tax. That's
okay.
That would have put him at the second, even the weekly wages would have put him second or third highest earner at Arsenal, and then the signing on fee was 8 million. I don't know Turkish tax law, so I don't know how much tax he'd have to pay on that. But still, I mean, that's a crazy big contract.
I'm surprised, and I obviously now you're talking about money, but because Italy, I thought somebody over there would try and pick him up, one of the Italy clubs, AC Milan.
There's been reports of a few teams, but I mean, well, say AC Milan, they ain't going to be spending money anytime soon because of the European ban. I mean, there's a few teams in Italy that have looked. I don't know how far them talks went, or even if they're still ongoing, but it seems like this Fenerbahce is quite far down the line. But as I said, that financial offer, he ain't going to get anywhere near that anywhere else in the world. And I've said on here last week, and I've said it before, if he leaves Arsenal in terms of for football, I think West Ham was the only move he could have in terms of for him as a player. And if that wasn't option, apparently he spoke to them and only offered him 1 year, which is obviously not what he was looking for. He wanted security. So then, if you can't get to either of the places you're very passionate about, you might as well take the biggest offer.
Yeah, no,
that's true. How I look at it.
Yeah, no, true. And look, you got a couple of years to go. Set yourself up.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, that's I could understand people looking at it different, but for me, if I really wanted to go to A or B and neither of them wanted me, then the next place I'd go is whoever's paying me the most. And you might call it a mercenary, but it's logical. If you've got a list of 20 clubs that want you, but you don't want to go to any of them, but you have to go to one of them, go to the one that's giving you the most money.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
That's how I would think. Yeah. And again, you may say I'm wrong, but that's me, what I would do.
No, I agree totally with you, mate. I'd be doing the same. Who's going to pay my wage and who's going to pay me the most?
Yeah. As I said, I mean, I'd understand the argument about the go to where's biggest football-wise, but if he doesn't really care about the club anyway, then why bother? He's going to be in the Champions League as well, so what have they really got over Juventus? Neither of the leagues are really watched in the UK. So Gareth Southgate's going to hang around now because he's had a half-decent World Cup, so Jack's never going to get picked for England. So what has he got to gain? What are the pluses and negatives? He may win a league title at Juventus. He may win a league title at Fenerbahce. But the league title is probably worth more in Italy, as in it's viewed as better. Apart from that, who cares? And is that worth... I'd imagine at Juventus after tax he'd probably be on about £40,000 or £50,000 a week. So is the potential of winning a league title and still maybe being a sub, bearing in mind they've just signed Emre Can at say Juventus, worth £50,000 a week to him? Not for me.
Since you just talked about Gareth Southgate, what is it with that bloke's dress? Where's he going? The way he dresses up, hanging on to that sideline, dressed up in a big fucking suit.
He's trying to look smart.
Fucking hell. Schwinn, I've got one here for you, buddy.
Schwinn, what do you think on Wilshere to Turkey if it happens?
I think the man's got to do what he's got to do. I have no issues with it. As you very correctly pointed out, he accepted the offer that we made to him in terms of the finances and was not able to sign because he was not getting the time. So, at that point, if he doesn't feel a connection with any of his potential suitors, then he's going to go for the financial package. And I'd be an idiot if I said that I wouldn't do the same if I was in his position.
Snow agrees as well.
No, and again, it's not about the money. I mean, it's not about the short-term money. Footballers don't have a long shelf life. And they have got to do what they can to bolster their future. I have absolutely no problem with footballers doing that.
No, I agree totally, mate. Red Fulcrum, does Schwinn still refer to Germany as his team? Joking.
Always.
I see AFC get linked with a bunch of midfielders and defenders lately. Do you think we'll get natural winger role that I personally think lack on the current squad?
Tough one. It's based on who we're able to get and for how much. So, we've heard about this 50 million, 60 million war chest, and that's what's being provided to Emery. I don't know, obviously, how true that is, but it seems like we're able to do deals despite this, really low figure that's being floated around. I wouldn't be surprised if we make a late run for one. I think right now that's not our priority, and for good reason. We obviously have more pressing issues deeper in the team, and those are the ones that are being looked out for. One center back is done, one midfielder is done, and obviously Lichtsteiner is done along with Bernd Leno. I think once we're done with Socrates and Torreira, our next target is going to be a center back who obviously Soyuncu has been linked heavily, and maybe we try and find an alternative for him if that deal falls through. And maybe then, with a week or two left in the window, we can consider our position and the market for a winger. If someone meets the criteria, I think we can be tempted. But I also think that Emery is absolutely fine with using Lucas Perez there as a makeshift right winger.
So I don't think it's Campbell as well, and that's I've just sent your board his name up. Harry Gunner actually says, "Would you like us to give Lucas Perez or Joel Campbell a chance next season as backups, or do you think we should cash in?"
I'm very happy to give Lucas Perez a chance. I think he didn't get a fair opportunity with us last season. As for Joel Campbell, I'm not a fan. I don't even know if he can get rid of him. I don't know if there's any suitors. I haven't read anything on him.
I think he leaves for free next season anyway, doesn't he?
Still, I'd like to not have him on the books, right, for the upcoming season. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a loan, that translates to a free transfer. I couldn't give a rat's ass because I don't think he's going to fetch a big transfer fee.
Not going to get much.
Yeah, so if we can offload him, that would be ideal for me. If Emery feels otherwise, I'm happy to see what Emery can bring out of him. It's not going to be a big risk in that regard, but we do have options, to your point, and to Harry the Gunner's point. I think there's some makeshift options available, and when the purse is tight, I don't think that's essentially a bad thing, considering we have a lot of attacking talent otherwise.
Okay, Tony, you got any that on that? Any of that, Tony?
Oh, I completely agree with the question in that I think we need a winger as well. I think we've needed a winger for a hell of a long time, an actual winger. We spoke before on here about the last actual winger we had, and we kind of struggled to place one. So, yeah, I think we do. I think it's something we need as an option. Who, I don't know. And if it's going to happen, I don't know. But I completely agree that I share the opinion of the person that asked the question that we do need one.
Mm-hmm. Lucas Perez, Joel Campbell?
I don't think either of them are the answer. I also think the issue we have is they both left-footed and play on the right. So it kind of takes away from the winger you need, because the idea, I think the reason we need a winger is to make the pitch wider. But with them both having to cut inside, they'd both make the pitch narrower, which is not really what we're looking for. In the same sense, one winger that has been mentioned a lot is Chucky Lozano, or Irving Lozano. And he's a better player than the other two, but I think he would pose that same issue. He's right-footed but plays on the left, and again he makes the pitch narrower. With him being that bit better, he can stay out wide and beat the defender for pace. But I still think even someone like him would not solve the problem we have.
Any of these young blokes, like, and I know Maitland, Niles and Nelson, or any of these other young guys that if Emery says, hey, I want to transfer your position, obviously, and want to make you my number one winger, do you see a player moulding into that role out of who we've got in the youth?
Well, look, I mean, Nelson's a winger. Nelson, it could be done, but he's nowhere near ready, and he still hasn't signed a contract. I'm hopefully going to jinx myself here. So I remember earlier in the season when I said I think he's gone. I don't think they'll give him any minutes.
Yeah.
Because he's signed, and then the very next day he started, and there was rumours that the contract was all agreed, and that was in April, and it's all gone quiet since then. So I don't know what's going on with him. Unless that contract's signed, he ain't going to be getting minutes. It's obvious. They're not going to build him up for someone else to have him for nothing. So
who else we got there?
Niles.
Niles couldn't transfer there.
Well, I mean, Niles is going to play in the centre mid. He has played wide before when he was on loan at Ipswich because he was so young and so small. They didn't trust or want him in the centre midfield, so they played him on the right wing. It's not ideal, but obviously he's got very good feet. He's tricky and he's very quick and he can cross the ball. So he's got assets that could lend themselves to a winger, but I wouldn't want to play him there.
And Eddie?
Again, he's played wide. He has played wide, and even when he came on as sub for us in the league, in the few games he came on, he played on wide. But again, I don't think it's for him. For me, I think the type of winger we need is someone that gets the ball at his feet and beats people. So for that, I think you'll probably need someone who is an actual winger rather than converting someone, because when you convert people, they may have assets that suit a winger, like I said with Maitland-Niles, but he's not the type of person that's going to keep driving his defender constantly and beating them in one-on-one situations. And I think that's the type of player we need that makes space where there isn't by beating people.
Okay. I'll stick with you.
Just quickly on Nelson. Arsenal had tweeted just earlier today, about 2 hours ago, I think, with a list of players who've been released, young pros and the Arsenal scholars for the upcoming season. I mean, as we edge closer to July 1st, I think some of these final names have to be put out. So Reece Nelson was not mentioned amongst the players who was released at the end of contract.
He's got another year.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay, I thought this was his last year. Never mind.
No, it was always the case. It was going into 18 months, like when I said it in January or whatever it was. So he's got a year, same as Ramsey.
Fair enough. Okay.
And the reason that list come out today is because all contracts run to the 30th of June, but obviously the 30th is a weekend, it's a Saturday. So
that's right.
The list came out today.
Was there any surprises on that list? I haven't seen
pretty standard.
Go on. No, there's a couple of youth players that people that watch a lot of youth team football are very surprised about. I don't watch a lot, so I'm not going to pretend to be outraged by Vlad Dragomir not getting a new contract, that he's the one that people seem to be most upset about. I mean, there's obvious names on it like Jack and Santi, but everyone and Mertesacker, but we knew about them anyway. Yeah, so there's a couple of youth team players that people seem to be quite surprised about, but I haven't seen anywhere near enough to be annoyed by that.
Okay. Okay, I will go with you, Schwinn, but I will ask Tony the same question. So Brad says, based on the World Cup so far, who would you sign for the Arsenal? That would go into the first 11. Let's pick realistic players that the club could sign. So no Ronaldo. Schwinn?
Oh, wow. He's put me on the spot here. I'm trying to think of players that have impressed me so far.
Well, the Russian bloke would be my first.
Golovin?
Golovin, yeah.
I think I saw some strong links between him and Chelsea today. I don't know how true that is, of course, but it seems like links between us and him have sort of died down, and these Chelsea links are picking up steam. So I don't know what's the situation with that, but obviously that's a very, very good shout. I think he will provide something in the midfield, something different in the midfield, and with Aaron Ramsey's every now and then injury that he picks up for 3 or 4 weeks, he could come in and do a job. But I'll defer to Tony if he has some names, and I'll think of some others in the meantime.
Tony?
Yeah, so I mean, I had two that I thought of, and I'm not even sure if they particularly would suit Arsenal, but just the way they've played, I couldn't not mention them. So one of them was Golovin, and the other one was Quintero. I think he's been exceptional. And I don't know huge amounts about him. When I tweeted the other day that I think he's been exceptional, a few people commented saying, oh yeah, I had high hopes for him before, but his career's kind of died out. I know Charlie Shanks, the artist who does the brilliant drawings that I retweet so often, said that he was a huge fan of Quintero a few years ago. I think he's been exceptional. There's an argument that he's not been the best player of the tournament, and at the moment, if that award was given now, it'd go to probably someone like Ronaldo or Harry Kane, who's got the most goals. But Quintero has been the biggest surprise. I think he's been very good, and he's not a household name. So the question is obviously based on this tournament. My two would be Golovin and Quintero.
I'll give a shout out for the young Mexican player who I said would be good. Lozano.
Yeah,
I thought he was all right.
I mean, I think he's very overpriced, and I don't think he's set the world alight thus far. He was good against Germany, and he was saying he played quite well against who the other team they beat as well.
Just trying to think of who's been there. There's been a couple. No. What else you got, Schwinn?
I'm trying to think. I mean, there's been players who've had good performances coming out of the games. I mean, Yerry Mina, for example, again from Colombia, who's had a couple of decent performances. And, of course, Tony tweeted out a couple of days ago that it seems like Barcelona do want to sell him. So that could be a player we look at. But there's no one who, like Golovin, who sort of screams that, look at me and, I can be someone who can fit into most teams, arguably. So for me, I think Golovin is probably at the top. And maybe after a round or two, I can, think of more players who've consistently performed. But at the moment, it's a bit of a task, if I'm honest.
Well, had I only watched the World Cup and I didn't know anything else about football and I'd only watched these 3 weeks and someone told me Arsenal needed a winger, I would be looking at Denis Cheryshev. But I do watch football and I have seen him play before and I wouldn't go anywhere near him. But if the question is based purely on the group stages, then Cheryshev.
Yeah. Look, and I'll just give a shout-out, Socceroos player Daniel Lozani, but he's not an Arsenal player, but, he's been good for the Socceroos. I think he'll end up somewhere. But no, I'm with you, boys. There's got to be someone for Croatia. They've been on fire.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can't say Modric or Rakitic. One's at Real Madrid and one's at Barcelona.
No, yeah. Okay. No, I was just looking through. Okay, boys. We've got another thread here with some more questions. So, Glenn says, Tony, what's your thoughts on the World Cup and the performance of Arsenal players? So, Elneny, Ozil, Xhaka, who else we got there? Iwobi.
Lichtsteiner.
Is that it?
No, Welbeck. Ospina.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
So what's my thoughts on the World Cup? I've loved it. Festival of football, you can't go wrong. In terms of how the Arsenal players performed, I don't think any of them have had a good game yet. Xhaka was... No, that's not unfair. I think Xhaka was good against Serbia.
Exceptional.
Yeah, not exceptional. And I think Lichtsteiner was good against Brazil. But again,
really?
Yeah, he was very good against Brazil. That's it. I mean, Welbeck's played about 20 minutes. Ospina has made a couple of good saves, actually. And he's not been at fault. I mean, they've only conceded 2 goals. One was a penalty and the other one he wasn't nowhere near at fault for. He does his standard going down for 10 minutes a game. But he's not been at fault for anything, but I wouldn't say he's played well. Iwobi we obviously spoke about earlier, and Ozil we've already spoke about. So thus far, it's not been a good tournament for Arsenal players, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Schwinn, you have to agree?
Yeah, it's been as expected. Of course, I think the best performance out of the lot has been Granit. I think the game he scored a goal in Serbia was a big game. It sort of decided who was going to go through and not. And I thought he stepped up to the plate under pressure and performed well. Of course, Mesut Ozil is obviously going to be someone under the microscope. And although I think he didn't have that bad of a World Cup, I still think it was obviously below his standard, well below his standard, and you'd expect more from him. Iwobi and Nigeria together, I think, were a big disappointment. There was lots of hype, and apparently for all the wrong reasons. I don't understand David Ospina. I never will. He seems to go down every time there's someone who's within a mile of him, and frankly, I don't stand for any of that. I know it's time wasting. I know it's gamesmanship and all that, but it's not something I particularly enjoy watching.
One game there, he got smashed up, didn't he?
I mean,
was it Poland?
Yeah, it was the Poland game, but it's every time. As soon as he catches the ball, it seems like he goes to ground and something or the other is broken, and I've sort of normalized it. Every time he goes down, I know I have enough time to go take a leak. So that's not a bad thing at the end of the day. But it's been disappointing. I mean, from 20 years ago when you saw headlines like Arsenal just won the World Cup, and of course France won it back in '98, to now where we're sort of expecting average performances. It's a pretty big downfall. I know there's advantages of some of the players coming back and they get an extended preseason, but I still want to see our players do well and get some of the limelight, and that seems a while away from now.
Every time I watch that Mbappe, I think, geez, I wonder whether he could have been an Arsenal player. I wonder how close that actually was, boys.
He still loves Arsene Wenger. He said, I think a couple of weeks ago, that if there's one manager that he would dream of having, it's Arsene. So I think it was pretty close. I think the finances didn't work out. From what I've read, I don't know how true this is. It actually might just be one of you boys telling me that he wanted an 8 million or 10 million payout for his family, essentially, and Arsene refused to do that. It was like a signing on bonus or something to that variety. And we refuse to do that because it's not something we've done before. Again, I don't know how true this is, but that's just something that I've read on the internet. I would like to believe it was close, but obviously it never happened, so there's no point deliberating on that.
Tony, so Hakon Larson, he's got a couple of questions here. The World Cup shows that a shit manager can do a shit job with good team, etc. I think we'll be better than most people think next year.
I'd like to know who he's talking about, because I saw this came in, and
I think he's saying Emery's a shit manager, so he can do a shit job with a shit team. I'm confused too.
No, I don't. He's not saying that.
The World Cup shows that a shit manager can do a shit job with a good team, etc. I think we'll be better than most people think next year.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't understand who he's talking about in terms of the World Cup, because if you look, unless he's calling Joachim Low, who is still a world champion, shit, or unless he's calling Sam Pauli shit, who definitely isn't. Deschamps, maybe you got an argument, but I mean, shit's probably a bit harsh. So I don't really understand what he's talking about in that sense. But yeah, look, next season is all down to expectations for me. I think if you expect us to go and win the league, I'm not saying he does, but if you expect us to go and win the league, then you're going to think Emery's shit come next summer. If you expect us to come top 4, we're going to be in and around that. And I don't know if your margins are as small as if we make it, it's good. If we're not, it's shit. Obviously, I don't know how that's going to go. All I can say about next season is going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah, okay. It will be. I'm looking forward to it, actually. He just basically saying what, like you said, with Lichtsteiner has been impressive. Bought as a backup, but there's no doubt he will challenge for the right back spot. I think Bellerin will improve next season due to competition and the rest. Thoughts?
Well, rest is going to help. Lichtsteiner was brought as backup, but I think a better term, and it's one that Hakon used himself, is he was brought as competition, not backup. It's the same thing. It's a better way of putting it. Yeah. He will keep Bellerin on his toes, and I think when he says he thinks Bellerin will improve, I hope he will improve. I don't know if you. I mean, for me, I'm kind of so far down the line with Bellerin where I've been thinking he'll improve for 3 years and he just hasn't. So now I'm at the stage where I hope it will happen. I don't particularly think it will happen, but if it doesn't, we've got someone who's very able. So it's kind of a win-win situation. I really do hope Bellerin improves, but if someone asked me to put money on it, I probably wouldn't, because I would have lost money 3 years in a row now.
Schwinn don't have Skype. I chose to blame Ozil. Hakon Larson. Why is he so easy targeted? Would he still give the blame for everything if he didn't play for Arsenal? Thoughts?
Look, I've seen two sides of how the fans treat Mesut Ozil. I think Tony touched upon the Arsenal side very well earlier during the podcast. So I'm gonna not touch that because I think that's in itself pretty encapsulating. the German side of Mesut Ozil is extremely fascinating, and I've crept into German Twitter a lot in the past, 2-3 years, and what I've noticed is he is the soft target. When things go well, Mesut Ozil is not mentioned, and when things go badly, irrespective of how things have gone badly and why, he's in the frame. I don't want to bring any of the right-wing politics in here stuff, because that's obviously an element, but I think there's also a lot of footballing misguidance that fans tend to judge Mesut on, and most of it is to do with when he's on the ball. Now, he can obviously find a pass, he's very good at knitting up play, but a lot of fans don't tend to notice players when they don't have the ball, and I think we've spoken about this earlier, that on an average, a footballer only has the ball for about 2 to 3 minutes in a football game. So what they do for the rest of it is, in a way, much more important than what they do with the ball. And that's where Mesut Ozil excels. He creates a lot of space. He does a lot of stuff off the ball. He'll cover those 5 yards and edge closer to his opponent who he's marking, so that he doesn't have to dash and sprint when that player gets the ball. He's very methodical. He's very oscillatory in that sense. He's perpetual motion. Even if he's walking, he's always available, and he's always doing things for his teammates. And for fans, that sometimes goes unnoticed. And I think that's a very key thing to mention here, because, as I said, it's 87 minutes of the game that we are probably not watching Mesut Ozil. And when you tend to do that, you will obviously not appreciate him. Apart from everything, I think when you watch the football, he's an enigma in a lot of ways. And I'm not trying to say here that I understand football better, but it's just that I've noticed him more. I tend to watch him when he doesn't have the ball. And I think in that regard, I've sort of educated myself as to how football can be played even without the ball. I think if people tend to do that, they'll probably not criticize him that much, if I'm honest.
Just to add on to that point, who was it? It was a manager that said if you watch Mesut Ozil, you miss the game, but if you watch Ozil, you see the whole match.
That was Pep Guardiola.
Well, I thought it was, but I thought he's never managed him, so I wasn't sure. But yeah,
I think it was during his time when he was at Real, and Pep was asked about how to stop Real, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I mean, that just kind of backs up your point. And consequently, Mourinho has said that there's no copy of Mesut Ozil, not even a bad one. So that tells you that some of the best brains in football recognize his value, recognize what he brings to the table, and because he's so unique, sometimes he doesn't get understood by the fans watching him, who, let's be honest, just like us, are very amateur in our understanding of the game.
Speak for yourself.
What did he say?
Speak for yourself.
Well, that's all I do here.
So just keep your Ozil questions coming in, lads, and you'll get a good response like that. Thanks, Schwinn. Chris Leary, he says, just doesn't stack up, Tony, unless some loaning option. Oh, what's going on here?
Oh, so that's about Chambers' new deal.
Okay, so that's not a question thread. Sorry. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. That's why I brought that up. So Chambers signed a 1-year extension. Holding signed an extension for a few months ago. It'd be interesting to see what happens with our centre backs. So was that you, Tony?
Yeah. So just to clarify that, because someone asked me offline, it's not a 1-year extension from now. He had a contract up till 2021, Chambers, and he signed now till 2022. So someone said, "Oh, what are you on about? Only a year, blah blah blah." But it's a year extension he signed, but an extension from 2021.
Okay, fair enough. There was one more question. Paul Martin. Here, lads, do you think we need another left back? I think Kolasinac is useless. Tony? Monreal's still there, eh?
Yeah, there's been talk about a few Spanish clubs looking at Monreal. I don't know if he wants to go home, so to speak. Also, we forgot to mention Nacho when we were talking about players at the World Cup. He hasn't played yet, so that's why I missed him out.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I'm not Kolasinac's biggest fan, and when everyone was saying how brilliant he was after the first 10 games, I wasn't even a fan of him then. But there's probably not many better second choices, and that's what he is. I think when you're comparing him to players, people compare him to the first team left backs at Chelsea or whatever team. But you have to compare apples with apples. And if you're looking for second choice left backs, they're probably maybe Tottenham with Danny Rose and Ben Davis are the only one with a better pair of left backs than we've got. I mean, you saw with City, even when Mendy got injured, they had to play Zinchenko and Delph there. So even big squads that spend big money don't tend to have great second choice in all positions. The big issue with Kolasinac is the money he's on, because with his performance levels last season, he's no more than a second choice left back. I think we'd all agree on that. He's on over £100,000 a week. That may not be a lot at some clubs, but us, that puts him probably in his top 6 or 7 earners. And for a second choice left back, that's probably a bit of a push. So I think
Tony,
that's the issue with him.
Sorry, but do you know how much we paid him as a signing bonus? Because he was a free transfer, wasn't he?
Yeah, see, this is where it gets sticky, because it depends how they report it. Sometimes they'll say they won't mention a signing on bonus, but they'll say, like, say, for example, Sol Campbell. I think they said he was on 160 grand a week, and this is obviously going back nearly 20 years now. Like, 16, 17 years. But they didn't mention a signing on bonus, and they just spread it across the term of the contract. And then other times they'll report just what the base wage is and a signing on bonus separately. So it's kind of very hard to tell if he's actually on 100 grand a week and got a signing on bonus, or if he's only really on, say, 70 grand a week, but they gave him a however much signing on bonus, and they split that down to £10 million a week, £10,000 a week. Sorry.
Yeah, over the contract.
Because say he signed a 5-year contract, so say they gave him $2.5 million signing on bonus, that would add. They could either pay that as a $2.5 million signing on bonus, or add 10 grand a week to his weekly wage.
Right.
So it's always in the reporting. I mean, the answer is I don't know, and as I said, it's all in the reporting of it. He's on over 100 grand a week. I don't know if that's in addition to a signing on bonus or inclusive of.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions, boys, and thank you all to all our listeners who send their questions in each week, because it really creates a good little segment in the podcast, and we really enjoy answering them too. So at @clockend_talk on Twitter, you can get us. Boys, so just we touched on the Chambers signing. What was your thoughts on that, Tony, with the Chambers?
Strange one, because I mean it's still had 3 years, so to take it to 4 kind of seemed a bit unnecessary. He only signed the contract 8 months ago. Yeah. I mean, it's said apparently Emery sees him as a part of the first team. That's the report is he's signed a new contract after Emery said he wants him to compete for a starting centre back role.
Okay.
That's the report.
So Holding's on the line by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when Holding signed that extension, I said at the time that I thought we was going down the Chelsea route with getting players tied up, and it's what we done with Chambers as well. Before we sent him to Middlesbrough, we got him tied up. So if he does have an amazing time, then you've got a lot of time left on his contract, and you can get a lot of value back for him. So I would imagine Holding's out on loan. The only thing with Chambers is, does that end any Kaglar pursuit? Because if it may be a case of they couldn't agree with him, or it may be a case of that Emery just prefers Chambers and said, rather than spend the money on this bloke, we've got this guy here. So I mean, I'm completely speculating here, but it does seem it seemed a bit unnecessary, really. If he's got 3 years left, that extra year, I mean, I don't know what it's there for.
It's weird. No, odd one. What's your take on it, Schwinn?
It's very, very strange. I mean, I think it basically means we're not going to get another centre back, if I'm honest.
Again, what about Mustafi though? Like, obviously he's there, but remember last summer he wanted to go.
Right, and I think Inter was one of the teams that were looking at him because, well, he wants to be in Milan from the report that came out, of course, last year. I don't know how true the situation is now, but he just had a baby girl, and his wife was living in Milan, so that's what he had his eyes set on. Obviously, I haven't seen anything to the liking this summer, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's someone that we're trying to ship out in order to get some money and bring in reinforcements. But if you leave Mustafi aside for the second and just consider the situation as it is, I think it means that we're probably not going to get another center back unless something it comes up in the or if something comes up in the market. Instead of us going out there and hunting deals and paying that premium, if we know there's a one-way player and a club is willing to sell, we still might have to pay a premium, but it might not be the 30%, 40% premium that English clubs are usually charged with. So we could wait for a deal to come to us, but I fear that this Soyuncu deal might not be as sure shot as people think it will be.
Looking at our signings at the moment, and I know there's 2 more to come or will be announced, you happy with the window?
I am. I think. I don't think it's going to stop. I think we still have our eyes on at least 1 more, and at the most 2 more. It could even be 3 if Mustafi leaves, if I'm honest. But I think it's been swift business. I tend to rewind and think what I wanted before the summer started, and I think all of us agreed that the lion's share of the business has to be done before the World Cup. And I think we've been able to do that. Lichtsteiner before the World Cup was done. Of course, we've done Leno and Socrates ever since. Torreira seems to be done. And we're pretty much halfway through the World Cup. Well, maybe a little over halfway. So I think we've done very well to identify our targets and get them locked down. We've also had time to see some of these players in action, Lichtsteiner in particular. So I think we've done very well. If I look across the league and I look at some of the other teams, and they've been slower, and there seems to be this new energy that seems to have taken over North London in terms of activity. We usually don't see so many ins and outs. We haven't seen too many outs, but we've seen quite a lot of activity, and I think that points towards the right direction.
How about you, Tony? You happy, mate?
The happy subjective. I am at the moment, but if the transfer window was closing tomorrow, I wouldn't be.
What are you on, another 2 3?
Yeah, I think as Shrin said, we've addressed areas we were looking at. So I remember I wanted a keeper. I think most of us wanted a keeper. Yep. Shrin wanted 2 centre backs. I thought it would only be 1, and it could be 1 or 2. We don't know. But it shows they've addressed that area. We wanted a backup right back or any form of right back. We've got that. But so we've addressed them areas. The holding midfielder, we look like we've addressed. So it's a weird one because on paper we've addressed every issue that we highlighted before the transfer window started, except for maybe a winger. But I just don't think what we've done is enough. Maybe it's because none of the players were names. I don't know if that just maybe drags it down a little. No one's ever spoke of these guys as world beaters. Maybe they've got potential. But
you're not saying $50 million players roll in as such.
So, yeah, look, I'm happy up to this point. But if it was August the 11th or whatever date it is, the transfer window closed, I'd probably think we're a little bit light.
Yeah, I definitely think.
What's been missed is, I may be wrong, but off my head, we haven't received a transfer fee for anyone yet. So we've still obviously got some outs to come, which when them positions become clear, it will also lead to more ins, I would imagine. But at the moment, we've not, I don't think I'm wrong, but obviously Per's gone, Jack's gone, Santi's gone, they've all been on, we've not received a fee for any of them.
The only 2 I could think of is probably Ramsey, Mustafi, and we've already touched on, we don't really, Jack.
Yeah, you don't know because you start losing squad players and then they need to be replaced. So people, I know he went in January, but people like Coquelin, you never thought of him as someone that was either essential to go, but when he goes, then you have to replace him. So it means getting a player in, and then do you get someone who's a first team player in and relegate the person in the first team position down to a substitute, for example? So I think a lot will be clearer with how our squad is going to. Even people if Campbell and Lucas both go, and Welbeck goes because he's only got a year left, then someone's obviously going to have to come in. I think you've got to judge the squad as a whole, which includes the outs.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you'd probably get 30 million for them 3, wouldn't you?
I doubt it.
10 each? Oh, no.
No, Danny, you probably get 15, but with a year left, probably 15. Joel Campbell, I don't think we'll get a fee for. said 2 million max, to be honest. You're more just saving money off the wage bill. And then Lucas, we were trying to sell him last summer, and I think the biggest offer was 5 million, and he didn't have a good year. So the only reason we didn't sell him last summer is because we couldn't recoup the money that we'd spent, anywhere near the money we'd spent on him. It was less than half. So it wasn't worth it. And I think they loaned him out with a hope that he was going back home and where he was happy, he would maybe perform. And he didn't. So his value definitely hasn't gone up. Unless, I know in the January, so we signed him obviously in the summer, and in January there was an offer from China, and Wenger blocked it. He said, you're still part of my plans.
No, okay.
Unless China comes back in for him, then we ain't going to get much from him.
One other, I don't know if it was ever really mentioned as we were talking through the podcast, but El Neni's there too, boys.
Yeah, he's just signed a new contract.
Yeah.
He's handy to have around because he's happy to sit on the bench.
Oh, I'm happy to have him, but it was just in all the questions and all our conversations, we didn't really touch on it. I don't know if that was, do we count him in the 7 midfielders?
Who else? That's 3.
I mean, I counted him in my 5.
5, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, Maitland-Niles, Torreira, El Neni, Randy Xhaka.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he's handy to have around. Okay, just before we go, so 15 more days, boys, and we've got a friendly coming up. Arsenal play Boreham Wood. So Boreham, is it?
Yeah.
So a few eyes might be looking at how Emery sets up there, and then we've got Atletico Madrid on the 26th of July for me, but that's probably different for you, Tony. So anyway, so not far, boys, and we get to have a look at what Emery's going to do. That's about it, lads. All happy?
Yep.
All done. Okay. Thank you for listening, and thank you for downloading. And you can follow us at @clockend_talk on Twitter. And we will speak to you all again next week when Mexico is through to the semis, Ashwin.
Oh, go fuck off. Viva Colombia.
It's coming home.
It's coming home. See you, boys.